Oh, there it is, Mary.
And this comes from the work of actually the two creators of Project LAD, Marcia Brechtel and Linnea Haley.
Marcia.
Brechtel, B-R-E-C-H-T-E-L, and Linnea Haley. And the rationale for doing this strategy is that it really taps into our students who come from a tradition of oral storytelling. It's also a way to model the genre of narrative. It works on, it's a way to work on sequencing with students. And it's also a visual introduction to the story the students are going to be reading.
What was the first part?
It taps into the tradition of oral storytelling that many of our students come to our classroom with.
I'm going to be like one of my students. Mrs. Barber, you're going too fast on this down.
Some people are very fast.
And so with the narrative input chart, you're taking the pictures of the story, and we'll talk about variations later. This has become a whole lot easier for treasurers now that we have our retail cards. But I did this before I was in this district. But I'm going to use the example of Click Clack Moo, How's That Type? This is in our second grade reader. And so this is how I would do it. So we're going to read a story called, we're going to listen to a story called Click Clack Moo, How's That Type? Has anybody ever used a typewriter? Raise your hand if you've used a typewriter. Just pretend you're second graders, you've never used a typewriter. And so using the pictures as a way to introduce some of this vocabulary, talking about can cows really type? What do you think this is going to be fiction or nonfiction, getting into all of that vocabulary. And so as you tell the story, you're putting the pictures up on any kind of, it doesn't have to be a fancy background like this, it can just be some colored chart paper.
Okay, so not going to be the setting that it takes place, not necessarily.
It's not necessary, because I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, as nice as it is, right?
Yes.
But so if you have an IA or somebody who is who's handy, they can make something for you. I have the story on the back of the pictures, and so I'm going to tell you the story. Farmer Brown has a problem. His cows like to type. All day long he hears click clack moo, click clack moo, clickety clack moo. At first he couldn't believe his ears. Cows that type? Impossible. Click clack moo, click clack moo, clickety clack moo. Then he couldn't believe his eyes. Dear Farmer Brown, the barn is very cold at night. We'd like some electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows. It was bad enough the cows had found the old typewriter in the barn. Now they wanted electric blankets. No way, said Farmer Brown. No electric blankets. So the cows went on strike. They left a note on the barn door. Sorry, we're closed. No milk today. No milk today, cried Farmer Brown. In the background, he heard the cows busy at work. Click clack moo, click clack moo, clickety clack moo. The next day, he got another note. Dear Farmer Brown, I've been telling this story. Put your heads together and tell your partner what is your favorite part of the story. Put your heads together. This is called the 10-2. It's the next strategy. Take another strategy sheet, 10-2. Kristen, I guess I'm going to talk about 10-2. And so what I forgot to mention is when you do the narrative input chart, the students are up with you at the carpet. When you're doing the cognitive content dictionary, they're sitting with in their teams, they're sitting with their group at their desks or at their tables. But the narrative input chart, they're up with you at the carpet. Lori?
Is it possible to just have a sketch and tell the story and add to the sketch instead of putting up pictures, or is that something different?
You mean actually sketching while you're talking?
You drew the cow and the farmer and the ducks.
I've never seen that. I think that might take a lot of time. I wouldn't feel comfortable sketching.
I think I saw that in the GLAD training where they would like sketch a picture and then they would add vocabulary that went with it.
Not the narrative.
Oh, that's the one, that's something else.
Identifying.
Okay.
I put it in pencil first, and then as I tell, I just fill in the pencil and the picture to get it from there.
Yeah, a lot of the GLAD strategies are based on the fact that you're sketching things in front of kids, and it's supposed to be work on brain imprinting where you're developing this in front of them. So, but I've never seen that.
They do the pictorial input chart though. I wonder, are we maybe confusing strategies? You wouldn't
Yeah.
do that with the narrative.
The pictorial is where you're doing direct input and you're creating a sketch in front of the students related to whatever the unit is. So that is a little bit different. But with the narrative, we usually just use the pictures.
And two on the floor and at their desks.
A 10-2 is anytime you are talking to the group for 10 minutes or for a chunk of time. So it doesn't matter if they're at their desk. If you're giving them a chunk of information for 10 minutes at least, they need that time to process.
For kindergarten teachers, you're probably thinking 10 minutes is too much, and you adapt that developmentally, so it might be a 5 and 1 for kindergarten.
Even first and second grade too.
Yeah, and then maybe increase as they get more ability to pay attention.
High school students, seniors, it's about what, a 3 and
3:30.
So just real quick clarifying question. So narrative is with the actual pictures from the stories.
And
correct?
we now have our story
Yes.
retell cards, and they work just great.
Okay, but it's not my drawings. It's actually the pictures the kids will be reading.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so do they
Angie?
have story retell charts in their regular treasures?
Yeah, they do. Yes.
But not fourth grade.
Not when you get into.
We have them with treasure chests.
Okay, two.
We have them with treasure chests.
And are they,
So the first day, you're telling the story using the pictures. You do a 10-2, you have students put their heads together and give them some question related to the story. The next day they come back, and we're talking about the whole class. And you're handing out, we call these smart cards. You've taken different vocabulary from the story, as well as word bubbles. Speech bubbles. Thank you, speech bubbles. Students are up here. You're handing out vocabulary and speech bubbles, but strategically. You're thinking about your level 1. Maybe my level 1 needs to know the word farmer. And I'm handing my beginning student or advanced beginning farmer. I'm thinking strategically about what words my students would benefit from listening for. The speech bubbles, maybe my kids, or something, maybe it might be a speech bubble that's not actually in the story, but something that's in a sentence that might be inferred. And so you're handing that to maybe somebody who is at grade level or above. You're handing these out. You can either say, turn to your partner and read your word or read your speech bubble, or you can say, turn to your partner and tell your partner which picture does he or she think this goes on. About the words and the speech bubbles, and you tell the students, so I'm going to tell the story again. When you hear your word or your speech bubble, or you think it's a sentence that might have gone on that picture, you're going to come up and put a piece of tape on the back of your word card and put it right on that picture. So boys and girls, today I'm gonna tell you the story again of Clip Clap Moo Cows That Type, and I tell the whole story. And then when the student hears their words, they come up and they put that word right on that picture, or that speech bubble that goes on that picture.
For primary, can you do a sketch with the word under it? 'Cause I know it's a lot of vocabulary.
That's, yeah, exactly.
Thinking like brown bear is great repetitive, but bear, I'm gonna know what.
Right. So, and so primary, a sketch with the word underneath
So
it.
then I
Any other questions?
I want to add something to the rationale section. I found in working with Indigenous students, so your Mixtec and your Triqui students who we often lump with Latinos but are not really culturally similar, this idea of taking mythology or folk tales and really playing upon the oral tradition helps them to use their strengths, and that's it's really powerful for those students.
There are some variations, and I don't want you to write this down, but what I think is very powerful about this strategy is having these pictures up here. When other students when they're working on Daily 5 or something, you're bringing up your beginning, advanced beginning students, or your struggling readers. You bring them up and you ask them, it's this hierarchy of questioning that you guys have, some of you have heard about. You have a beginning student, you start with point to the cow, point to the farmer. From there you go to yes, no questions. Is this a cow? Is he mad? That's a yes, no question. From there, from there you go to either or questions, and so you're asking this hierarchy of questioning, and from either or you go to open-ended questions. And so it's a way to develop some of those language skills for your beginning students, as well as some of your struggling readers. From there, there's a wonderful, wonderful strategy. It gives you a formative assessment of how your English language learners, your beginning and your low intermediate students are doing. You bring up a group of maybe 3 or 4 students. You give them each a colored marker. You have chart paper here, and you take the marker of the first student and you ask them, tell me what is happening in the beginning of the story. You write down exactly what they say, and then you write their name. The next student, you take their marker, what happened next? And you write down exactly what they say. And this becomes an assessment of what their language, where they're at in language. The next unit, you do the same thing. You pull the same set of students, you ask them to tell you a story, and you actually have evidence of how their language is developing. When you have this language written on this chart paper, it's also a way for you to know where a mini lesson might happen. Whether it's vocabulary, whether you can look at the grammar, whether if they're working on present tense, maybe you decide on a mini lesson on present continuous. So it gives you some idea of where they're at in their language development. And I don't want you guys to talk about this the 12th because it's pretty, I think it would be too much. But just while I was here, I'm going to talk about this strategy. Mary?
What did you say you did? You asked them to retell the story? 'Cause you
Right.
just told-
You start with one student, ask them, and you write down exactly what they say. You date it. When you have this, you date it, and you have the student's name for each one, and you put it away. And then the next unit, you do the same, and then you can pull out the 2 charts, and you can look at how their language has developed.
The writing of